My name is Phoenix. I'm the manager of UWE Bristol International Office in Malaysia. Today we have these sessions and to brief you a few things which you have probably learned from the emails that we send out or the WhatsApp invitations that we are going to have briefing updates from our speakers. Perhaps it will be good for me to introduce each of them. We have today, we will have Ray Priest, our regional director, to brief students and parents about, updates on COVID situations in the UK on behalf of UWE Bristol, and also whether is it safe to study and, life at the moment in the UK and whatnot. So Ray will actually brief students on that. And then we also have Faith Gearing. Faith, would you like to wave hands and show your face? Faith, and also Caris hello. Faith and Caris are our immigration advisor in UWE. We're here to actually share about visa applications, extension, and things like that. So very important information. And we also have Stephen from STC Travel. He's the managing director for STC Travel to advise on travel arrangement. That will be the last session. So this is a Zoom meeting setting, as you may see. We have 100 over guests here, including ourselves. So therefore, as usual, we would like you to mute yourself and also kind of like off the videos while the sessions is going on, so that there won't be interruptions. And this session will be recorded as well. We will actually share with the students after editing, so that you can actually watch whichever parts or share with your friends who couldn't be here today. Okay. So without further ado, I will invite Ray to give an update on the sessions. Okay, Ray?
Well, thank you, Phoenix. And the first thing to say today is a big hello to everybody. It's wonderful that so many of you have been able to join us today, and welcome into my home. So you're here now in my home, which happens at the moment to be in Thailand, so not so far away from Malaysia. But of course, at the moment, even though we're neighbours, I'm not able to actually travel and see you. Hello again. Well, I don't know how far we got, and there was a sudden cut. So I don't know if that was a power cut at your end or at my end, but who cares? Just proves where anything can happen. Anyway, I guess the thing that you're really thinking about at the moment, and especially mums and dads and students, is about travelling all that way, 6,000 odd miles to the UK to be part of the university in the UK. And I'm going to share a little bit about my thinking around that. I'm going to tell you a bit about my family who are in the UK and my friends in the UK. I'm sure that Caris and Faye will also tell you, because they're in the UK at the moment, about what life is like. I want to actually dispel some of the things that you read about in the media. Sometimes newspapers have to sell, and they sometimes say things that are quite dramatic, but are not totally. Okay. Let's start by going to a few slides that I've got. I don't know if Wyman's able to put the slides up. I thought it would be good if we started off by seeing a picture of what I think is the iconic, really, part of Bristol, and that's to actually look at the Clifton Suspension Bridge. Hopefully that'll come on your screens in a minute. But here it is. Let's actually look at that bridge and just look across the city, because whatever the situation, whatever the crisis that there's been with COVID, of course, the one thing that doesn't change is that beautiful view of nature, that view of the city. That's absolutely as it is, whatever the conditions are at any time. And I think as you start to think about going to Bristol, we have to adapt, all of us, to what everybody's calling the new normal. Now, I'm not quite sure what that new normal means. But I do know when I go out now and I go shopping or I go eating out, or I go to have a drink, or I go to meet friends, that there are things that we have to think about. Everybody talks about social distancing. When I go into the shop, I'm always loading up that QR code. I'm sure you're doing the same. The same when I go into a restaurant. And then, of course, you have everything wrapped up and people are there with masks serving you. It's certainly very different to how it was a few months ago. And you know, that is something that is true in the UK, as it is here throughout Asia. It's no different. It's a kind of new normal. But does that mean as human beings that we don't enjoy the experience of being with our friends, of going out, of actually socialising, of being able to learn, of being able to study? Of course it doesn't mean that. We can't put our lives on hold for however long because of a crisis which of course we all hope is solved through medicine in the near future. So the first thing I want to say about life in the UK is just think about life in Malaysia, or life in Thailand, or life in any other parts of the world. At the moment, there have been all kinds of issues, all kinds of restrictions, but we're living through them. If I go on to the next slide, I think this is important just to share with you because it just reflects the year at the university itself. I don't want to go through all of the dates, but what I do want to actually pick out is that you will not have to be at the university until you start in October, the 19th of October. And indeed, you have the flexibility to wait right the way until the 9th of November. And that's if you're on an undergraduate course that is starting this autumn. So there's flexibility about when you arrive. Now, the good thing about that is it gives you an opportunity to keep looking at the news, keep looking at the situation, and actually coming to your decision about when you want to go and study. The other thing I want to share with you is about what life will be like at the university. And it's really good that yesterday I was involved in conversations with the leaders of the university and talking about university life. The campus is already beginning to open again after the crisis. And already 2 of our main teaching blocks are open and students are already engaged in activities. Students who had to be involved in getting research projects ready, who needed access to laboratories or to art laboratories. And that's going to be the same for you. You're not going to travel 6,500 miles to just do something that's on a computer, to do something that's online. You will be travelling all of that way to have a university experience. A university experience with face-to-face teaching, a university experience where you actually live and enjoy being with friends from countries around the world. A university experience where, of course, you'll be able to use facilities like some of the sports facilities, like actually the cafeterias that are on site, like the Students' Union. There will be clubs and societies. All of these things will happen. But of course, they will happen in the sense that everybody has to get rid of or think about the new normal. So yes, we may have to wear face masks when we're on some activities. Yes, we may have less people in a room or in a building at a particular time. But it doesn't mean that we stop. It means that the new normal is something we just have to get used to. Now, of course, one problem that all universities in the whole world are having at the minute, and that is that universities always have lectures where perhaps 200 or 300 students come together and listen to somebody giving a talk on a particular subject. Now, this is one thing that every university in the world is struggling with, because of course you can't put 300 people at the moment into a room to actually be part of a lecture, because that wouldn't be safe to do so. And so those large lectures, which form a very small part of your course, will be delivered digitally online to you. So what will happen is you might be in a class, a discussion group, and you'll watch the lecture together with a few other students and your tutor, but you won't actually be in the lecture theatre with 200 or 300 other people. So all that teaching will be as normal, but the one difference is that very large group sessions will not happen. If you're a scientist and you need to use laboratories, you'll be able to use them. If you're an artist and you need to be in the studios, you'll go into the studios. If you're a film student and you want to use the film studios, you'll be able to do all of that. So in that sense, university life will be unchanged. You'll be able to enjoy a social life, you'll be able to enjoy activities, you'll be able to live on campus, and you'll be able to undertake all those learning activities. There is a second block, you'll see this for January starters. The January starters there, the dates are shown, are mainly postgraduate students. So if you're a postgraduate student, it may be that you're starting in January. And I do know that some students also go in January because they're just advancing to the final year of their degree studies. And in a few subjects, that is on offer. Let's go on to the next slide. I just wanted to go through just 2 or 3 things here. Now, obviously, you will have heard in the newspaper that many countries, the UK is one, has quarantine regulations. And at the moment, the UK has announced, I think it's about 60 countries where quarantine isn't necessary. Now that is being reviewed every couple of weeks. So to be honest, we can't tell you what the situation will be come October, November or next January. However, what we can tell you is that if you are living on accommodation on campus, we're already prepared for that. We're actually making sure that there are blocks available where you'll join with international students who are joining from across the world, and that you'll be able to have that quarantine period together. There'll be no worry about food. You're on campus, so that's good. You're already in a space where everybody will get to be known to each other, and so not something you need to worry about. I've already mentioned about wearing masks. We're all used to that already. Social distancing, we're used to it. The digitally enhanced learning, that's what I've already talked about. In the world now, we're all using computers more, but that does not replace face-to-face teaching. It's an enhancement, something that's more. The student community, I've mentioned all of that. And then health services, I think this is quite an important thing. Everybody worries about health. Well, let's just say that our health facilities on campus, there are hospital facilities very close to the university, and all of those are provided to students. There's no preference to people who are UK citizens to those who are visitors from overseas. If you are unwell, you can access those facilities. But do you know the government in the UK has just released some information that I think is really interesting. And it was pointing out, and I hope most of you are under 25 years of age, that for most people under the age of under 25, that actually COVID-19 has been such a small number of people. In fact, when they talked about people dying through COVID-19, which is obviously something that has been horrendous for the whole world, what they've just reminded us is that there is more risk stepping off the curb to walking across the road than actually for younger people the situation has been with COVID-19. Now that's not to play it down. These have been tremendously difficult times, but it is to give a sense of reality about how things are. And I just want to reassure you that health services are available not only in the UK, but also on campus to help you if you get into difficulty. At the end of the day, the Minister of State for Higher Education, all of us in the UK and UK universities are really ready to welcome international students again, as is Malaysia ready to welcome international students to its university. The most important thing is that we have to use our common sense. When you travel to the UK, and you'll hear about that in a minute, it's important that we do so safely. When you arrive in the UK, we'll be at the airport to greet you and make sure that you're on actual transport to take you all the way to the campus. When you're at the campus, obviously, activities within the sense of being new normal. So I guess my message is to try and be reassuring. It's to say we have to live in this world as it is now. That's something that we've all got to get used to. But we also have to look to the future. We have to move forward. And at the end of the day, we have to do what it takes to make sure that we're ready for the next step in your career and in your learning journey. So I know there'll be lots of questions and I'll be happy to answer those later on, but I think it's quite important now that you listen to the next part of the presentation, but please do think about creating your story for the future. Do actually have confidence that we would not accept students at the university if we felt it was unsafe to do so. Please do start to plan, be flexible, do recognise that things are slightly different. But being different doesn't mean that it's going to be a poor experience, it just means it's a different experience. And don't forget, you've actually been introduced to Phoenix. We have a team of UWE staff throughout Asia, over 50 staff. If you need help, we're only a call away, so do always feel that you can call on us. So thanks for listening, and I'll go on chat and do some of the questions whilst we're listening to the visa, and at the same time we can actually have some questions at the end. Thanks for listening.
Well, thank you, Ray, for this update. Really important information for our students and parents. While you were giving the sessions, I picked up two questions from the students' chat box. One of which is that, is there any support from UWE for students who choose to live in the private accommodations? I think what she's trying to ask is about quarantine, if I get it right.
Yeah, it's a very important question because obviously it's very easy for us to make all the arrangements when it's campus or UWE accommodation in the city. It is more difficult with private accommodation because obviously that is something with landlords across all different areas. All I can say is that our Global Centre team, and I didn't mention the Global Centre, but our Global Centre team, and Faye and Caris, who are going to be speaking with you in a minute, are part of that team, are obviously there to help everyone, including those who are actually with private landlords. So we will be supporting you in terms of any discussion with landlords. We'll be making sure that obviously all of the things that you need are made available, whether it's food to eat or whatever it is like that. And actually, I have to say to you, unless there is spikes around the world, and we are seeing that in some places, aren't we, with COVID, I think the quarantine rules may well not be quite as stringent by the time we get to October, November, January. But if they are, we have got a dedicated team in the Global Centre just for international students. Not for all students, just for international students.
Sure, thank you, Ray. And another question has been, does international students require to do any COVID tests in order to enter to the UK?
Currently, no. There is no requirement for a COVID test on arrival. However, as you would expect, there will be things like questionnaires to fill out, and we will have to wait for government guidance if there is anything else that you need, for instance, a health check here in your home country before flying. I'm sure Stephen will talk a bit about that, because this is something that where people are talking about travel bubbles is an issue for all airlines as they think about moving people around the world again. But at the moment, the UK position is not to test because the quarantine is there for that circumstance. Obviously, if somebody was unwell on arrival, then yes, they would be taken into healthcare and they would be tested. And of course, everybody that had travelled with them would be notified. But I think that actually the most important thing will be all the protections the airlines put in place before people travel.
Sure, thank you, Ray. And we have Aldin actually asking whether he could actually accessing to sports facilities while he's studying at UWE. What's your view, Ray?
Yes, I mean, sports facilities, the plan is that they will be open. I think there will be a slight difference in that we have obviously a booking system, and what will probably happen is that less students will be able to use the facility at any one time. So that will be an issue. There's obviously all the accommodation on campus is en-suite accommodation, so people can go back and use showers in their own room if that's a concern, you know, in terms of that. But at the moment, sport is beginning to open up again in the UK, not with spectators, but actually the sport itself. And so I fully anticipate that the sports and leisure facilities will be available to you, but it may well have to be on a bookings basis. So for instance, using the gym, whereas now we might have 100 people at a time in the gym, it might be restricted to 50 so that people can actually distance. And that will mean obviously that you'll probably have to book more in advance than you would at the moment. But I guess that's again the new normal.
Sure. Thank you, Ray. And we have Ahmad actually asking, he's looking into applying for private accommodation, and then he is asking when is the best time to actually start, applying for this private accommodation. This probably will be the last questions we are picking.
Okay. Well, I think the most important thing is obviously if you've got your offer, and we're going to start talking about the CAS in a minute. And so obviously once you've got the CAS and you've applied for the visa, once you've done all of that, so you know that you're starting to think about going, you're starting to plan your journey and the journey time, and more from Stephen on that, I think that's the time when then you'll want to be in contact with the Global Centre. We'll send this information to you. You'll want to be talking about the possibility of going into private accommodation. So the good news is there's a lot of private accommodation for students in Bristol. There always has been, and I don't foresee there being huge problems in finding accommodation this year. But you will need to start that, but I'm guessing it's the sort of thing you'll do in a month to 6 weeks' time.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Ray.